The bridge of the New Horizon was silent except for the low hum of the ship's systems. Through the wide viewing glass, Earth hung against the black void, smaller than Elena Vasquez had ever seen it. The once vibrant blue and green sphere was now dulled by swirling storms and a faint halo of dust. Above it, the sun burned with a strange, feverish light, its surface rippling with unstable flares that reached far into space, like grasping fingers. It was beautiful and terrible all at once. A final performance before its collapse. Elena stood with her hands clasped behind her back, the weight of 8 billion lives pressing against her shoulders. She had given the order to launch the Exodus fleet 2 days ago, knowing there would be no return. The evacuation had been desperate, chaotic, but it was done. Every ship that could fly was here, thousands of them stretching out in loose formation, each carrying fragments of humanity's history, culture, and hope. They had left their oceans, their cities, their mountains, and every childhood street behind. Now all they had was each other and the cold road ahead. Marcus Chan approached quietly, his voice low but steady. "All ships report ready for FTL jump, Commander." His dark eyes flickered to the planet on the screen, then back to her. "They're waiting for your signal." Elena studied him for a moment. Marcus was loyal to the core, but she could see the unease in his posture. He had never trusted the new FTL drives. She didn't blame him. They were prototypes, barely tested, and rushed into service because there had been no other choice. Still, she nodded. "Open fleet-wide channel." Her voice carried across the void to every ship, every family, every soul in the fleet. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the New Horizon. In 30 seconds, we will leave Earth forever. Remember this moment. Remember what we were, and remember what we hope to become." She paused, letting the silence hold for a breath. "We carry the legacy of our world with us. Do not forget." As the countdown began, Dr. Sarah Kim's voice broke over the bridge intercom. "Commander, we're seeing instability in the time containment fields around the FTL bubbles." Elena turned toward the science station. "Define instability." Sarah's hands flew over the console, data flashing across her screens. "Time inside each ship may not flow at the same rate. Even within the same group, days for one crew could be years for another. We don't know how severe the difference will be." A cold knot formed in Elena's stomach. "Can we correct it?" Sarah shook her head. "Not without shutting down the drives, and if we do that, we'll never outrun the sun's collapse." Elena looked back at Earth. The surface glinted with a final shimmer of reflected sunlight. There was no choice. "We proceed." Marcus's voice was quiet but firm. 10 seconds. The engines began their low, rising roar, and the stars beyond the glass seemed to tremble. At 0, Elena gave the order. "Jump." Light stretched into endless lines, the universe warping around them. The ship shuddered, gravity struggling to hold steady. Then, just as the jump stabilized, a soft chime from communications drew every eye to Lisa Park at her console. "Commander," she said slowly, "we have company." On the display, 3 ships glided alongside the fleet, their designs like nothing from human archives. Sleek, silver shapes with shifting patterns on their hulls, moving effortlessly at matching speed. No weapons raised, no aggression. "They're transmitting," Lisa added. "Mathematical symbols, very basic." "What do they say?" Elena asked. "They wish us luck on our journey." Elena stared at the alien ships until they turned and vanished into the dark. She wondered what they saw when they looked at humanity, pioneers or refugees running from a dying star. The New Horizon sailed through a star field that no one on Earth had ever seen, the deep black outside their windows broken only by the silver glimmer of distant suns. It had been weeks since the jump. Weeks since they left the cradle of humanity behind. Yet for Elena Vasquez, time felt strange, fluid, untrustworthy. The clocks on the bridge disagreed with the clocks in engineering. Two officers swore they had worked the same 12-hour shift, yet their logs said otherwise. It began with small things, a day seeming shorter than it should, a meal missed because it wasn't time yet, according to a nearby system. But soon, the differences became impossible to ignore. Marcus Chan stood at her side, a grim look etched into his features. "It's worse than Dr. Kim expected," he said. "The time bubbles aren't just drifting. They're colliding, splitting, and reforming around the fleet. We have ships that are already decades ahead of us, and ships that may still be only hours out from Earth." Elena stared at the tactical display. The fleet was supposed to be a single arrow of humanity's will, 3,000 ships aimed at their destination. Now it looked like shattered glass, icons drifting at impossible angles, their data feeds showing wildly different timestamps. "Can we maintain communication?" she asked. "Not consistently," Marcus said. "Some ships respond instantly. Others answer hours later, though they swear they replied at once. It's disorienting." Before Elena could answer, Lisa Park's console chimed. "Incoming transmission," Lisa said, her voice uncertain. "It's from Group 7, Captain Rodriguez." Elena's pulse quickened. Rodriguez had been her closest friend before the Exodus, a man she trusted with her life. "Put him through." The screen flickered, and James Rodriguez appeared. He looked older, much older. His hair was streaked with gray, his face lined with years that hadn't passed for her. "Elena," he said with a tired smile. "It's good to see you." "It's been months," she said. "Not for me," he replied. "It's been 20 years. A chill moved through the bridge crew. Rodriguez leaned closer to the screen, his voice dropping. "Half my fleet is gone. Some jumped so far forward I'll never catch them. Others, I think they're still near Earth, maybe just days after launch. Time isn't just splitting us, it's scattering us across history." "What about supplies?" Elena asked. "We found a planet," he said, "habitable enough to settle. Not our original destination, but my people need ground under their feet before they forget what it's like. We're stopping here. If we keep moving, the time drift will kill us." "Will you survive?" Rodriguez smiled faintly. "We'll adapt. But there's something you need to hear. The aliens you met, the Galactic Consortium, we've met others. They keep records of every species they encounter. According to their archives, humanity went extinct over 3,000 years ago." The bridge fell silent. "But we're talking right now," Elena said. "They think we vanished before their oldest empires were born," Rodriguez said. "Our FTL scatter must have thrown us so far forward in time that, to them, we're relics of a dead civilization. Whatever you do, Elena, remember who we are. Make sure someone remembers where we came from." The signal cut abruptly, leaving the screen dark. Marcus turned to her. "Commander, if Rodriguez is right, we may not just be refugees from Earth. We're refugees from our own era." Before she could respond, Lisa gasped. "Commander, unidentified contacts, multiple ships closing fast." Elena stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Human?" Lisa shook her head. "No. Same configuration as the ones we saw before. Consortium ships. But they're not hailing us. They're just watching." The alien ships fell into formation, keeping pace with the fleet. No weapons powered, no obvious threat, just a silent escort in the void. "They know something," Marcus murmured. Elena didn't answer. She was too busy watching those alien silhouettes drift alongside the scattered remnants of humanity, wondering if they were witnessing the rebirth of a legend or the final wanderings of a ghost. The fleet was no longer a fleet. Where once thousands of ships had traveled together, a vast migration of humanity across the void, now the new horizon led a ragged handful of vessels whose signals flickered in and out like ghosts. Some had vanished into the darkness, their time bubbles carrying them centuries ahead or centuries behind. Others clung desperately to Elena Vasquez's formation, engines strained to their limits. Each ship was its own fragile pocket of history, carrying the last of humanity's cultures, languages, and stories. And one by one, those pockets were breaking away. It was Dr. Sarah Kim who first suggested what came next. She stood in the dim light of the bridge, her expression unreadable. "Commander, we cannot count on ever reaching Kepler 442 as a single group. The instability is worsening. If any ship finds a world with a chance at survival, it may be wiser to stop." Marcus Chan frowned sharply. "We scatter, we weaken. A divided humanity won't survive in this galaxy." Sarah shook her head. "A united humanity traveling in a fleet that can't stay synchronized will die in the void. Separate colonies, at least some of us might endure." It was the most difficult order Elena had ever given, but within weeks, the inevitable began. The first to break away was the New Dawn, led by Captain Marcus Chan himself, after a tense private discussion with Elena. Their destination was a volcanic world marked in their long-range scans, rich in resources, but hostile beyond reason. From orbit, Prometheus looked like a world on fire. Rivers of molten rock crisscrossed its continents, volcanic ash stained its skies red, and acidic oceans boiled against black shores. Every scan screamed death. Yet Marcus had been certain. "The other worlds in the system are worse," he'd told Elena before departing. "Gas giants, frozen rock, orbits too close to the star. Here, at least, we can build. We adapt or we die, and I don't plan on dying." The New Dawn vanished into the thick atmosphere, leaving only a final transmission on open channel. "Hell will do. We'll make it ours." The next was the Endeavor, under Captain Lisa Rodriguez, niece to James Rodriguez, though she had never met him in her timeline. Her scans showed a frozen world locked in eternal winter. From space, Niflheim glittered like glass under starlight, its entire surface buried beneath glaciers kilometers thick. Temperatures never rose above -50, and the winds never ceased. But deep scans revealed warmth far below the ice. Geothermal vents, vast underground caverns, and liquid water oceans sealed beneath the frozen crust. "We'll build down, not out," Lisa had told Elena. "We'll dig cities the storms can't touch, and we'll teach our children to navigate a world of stone and shadow." The Endeavor descended, carrying its people into the endless cold. Finally, the Aurora's gate broke away for a strange twilight world the crew named Threshold. Tidally locked to its star, one hemisphere was a molten desert of perpetual day, the other, a frozen wasteland of endless night. Between them stretched a narrow twilight band, where the sun forever hovered on the horizon. The Aurora's gate settled its colony ships in this eternal dusk, where the air was thin but breathable, the temperature survivable, and the strange magnetic fields twisted the sky into auroras that never faded. Dr. Maria Santos, their governor, had sent Elena a final message before the link degraded into static. "We'll live here, between extremes. Our people will learn the balance of light and dark." Months later, Elena sat alone in her quarters on the New Horizon, listening to the last recordings from those ships. Children's voices laughing on Prometheus as they learned to walk under a heavier gravity. Engineers in Niflheim singing work chants while carving new tunnels into the ancient ice. Farmers on Threshold experimenting with crops that grew under the constant half-light of an alien sun. Humanity was changing, adapting, becoming something new in each corner of the galaxy. But it was in the quiet hours, when the ship's hum was the only sound, that the weight of what was happening struck her. They had left Earth together. Now, humanity was scattering across not just the stars, but across time itself. Some colonies might flourish, others might vanish without a trace, and none could know what the others had become, until fate brought them together again. If it ever did. In the heart of the Galactic Consortium's archive station, where the walls shimmered with streams of ancient data, Dr. Kethlar moved in silence. Her crystalline body refracted the pale blue light as she passed row after row of floating holographic records. Most researchers came here to study the known history of the galaxy. Wars catalogued, treaties archived, scientific achievements preserved like priceless relics. Kethlar preferred the opposite. She hunted the gaps, the absences, the mysteries left behind by civilizations that had vanished so completely, the only proof they had existed were the artifacts no one could explain. The most famous of these mysteries were the precursor relics. Every child in the consortium grew up hearing stories about them, massive structures of impossible design scattered across thousands of worlds, their creators long gone, their purpose unknowable. To the consortium, they were sacred. To Kethlar, they were a puzzle that had refused to be solved for over 1,000 years. Today, one such puzzle hovered above her workstation. A rotating, three-dimensional scan of a metallic tower recovered from a barren moon in the Tethys system. The tower was nearly 1 kilometer high, made of an alloy that should have been impossible for any civilization older than the consortium itself to forge. Its surfaces were etched with patterns that some believed were language, others believed were mathematical codes, and still others thought were nothing more than decorative flourishes. Kethlar had seen enough of them to know that nothing the precursors made was without purpose. Her colleague, HFY of the Kari, approached, a small-bodied avatar of the vast collective mind he belonged to. "Still chasing ghosts, Kethlar?" His voice came through the speaker as a dozen tones layered together, the chorus of his connected minds. "Ghosts don't leave this many footprints," she replied, gesturing to the map floating nearby. It showed thousands of dots scattered across the spiral arms of the galaxy, every confirmed precursor site known to the consortium. "And there's a pattern here. I can feel it." "Patterns are easy to imagine when you want them to exist," HFY said. But even as he spoke, his eyes lingered on the map. "What is it this time?" Kethlar tapped the display. The map shifted, overlaying another network of lines across the dots. "These are ancient FTL travel routes," she explained, "from over 3,000 years ago, before modern slipstream drives. Notice anything?" HFY was silent for a moment as hundreds of Kari minds ran parallel analyses. "The sites follow the routes, almost perfectly." "Exactly," Kethlar said. "These relics weren't left at random. Someone followed these paths, maybe traders, maybe refugees, and built or left something behind at each stop." HFY tilted his head. "You think the precursors were nomads?" "I think," Kethlar said carefully, "that they were travelers. And I think they were moving for a reason." She pulled up another overlay, extinction records from the same era. Most of the species on the list were footnotes in history, wiped out by natural disasters, wars, or slow decline. But one entry caught her eye every time. Species, Homo sapiens. Common name, humans. Origin, Sol system, third planet. Status, extinct. Estimated date, 2847 years ago. Notes, achieved early spaceflight. Destroyed by stellar collapse. HFY saw it too. Humans, primitive, barely interstellar, irrelevant. "Then explain this," Kethlar said, switching the display to a side-by-side comparison, precursor inscriptions and ancient human mathematical notation from the Sol archives. The similarities were undeniable. 73% correlation. That's not a coincidence. Vex-High's collective went quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. If you're right, then the precursors weren't gods. They were humans. Before Kethlar could answer, the chamber lights dimmed and a deep alarm thrummed through the station's crystalline walls. The voice of the station commander, Luxandra of the Ethereals, echoed across the comms. All personnel to emergency stations. Long-range sensors detect multiple unidentified vessels entering consortium space. Estimated mass, enormous. Estimated velocity, extreme. Kethlar's gaze snapped to the real-time feed from the observation array. Out in the void, something moved. Vast silhouettes that shifted like liquid metal under the light of distant stars. They were unlike any ship she had ever seen. Vex-High's collective whispered in awe. They match precursor design. The station's sensors tried to scan the newcomers, but the readings fragmented and warped, as if the ships existed partially in another reality. Then, without warning, symbols began to glow along their hulls, soft blue patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Translate," Kethlar ordered. A moment later, the station's AI spoke. "Message reads, 'We have returned. We are the children of Earth.'" Kethlar's crystalline form flickered, a sensation she had not felt in centuries. She turned to Vex-High, and in his many voices, he asked the question forming in her own mind. What if humans never died out? The observation deck of the Consortium Research Station was filled with the pale glow of starlight and the restless murmurs of its crew. Dr. Kethlar stood at the transparent wall, her crystalline form refracting every flicker of light from the massive alien ships that had appeared only hours earlier. They hung in the darkness like sleeping titans, hulking, seamless, with hulls that seemed to shift as though they were alive. For centuries, the Galactic Consortium had dreamed of this moment, direct contact with the creators of the precursor relics. Priests in the Outer Rim would weep to know their gods had returned. Politicians would salivate at the chance to harness such power. Scientists like Kethlar felt something deeper, a gnawing hunger to understand. But there was a problem. "They're not answering any of our calls," Luxandra, the station commander, said as she drifted into view, her energy-based body shimmering faintly. "No formal greeting, no request for docking clearance. Just that single transmission. We are the children of Earth." Kethlar's mind buzzed with the memory of that phrase. Earth. The name came from old extinction records, from the archives she'd combed obsessively for years. A planet in the Sol system, dead for over 2 millennia when its star collapsed, home to a species dismissed as primitive. Humans. Vex-High arrived in his small-bodied avatar, the subtle hum of his collective mind ever present behind his speech. The Council wants a full profile of these vessels. Any weakness, any defense system, any hint of what they can do. If they've come to reclaim their artifacts, or worse, to conquer— "They haven't come to conquer," Kethlar interrupted. Her gaze remained fixed on the shifting shapes beyond the glass. "If they wanted us gone, they wouldn't be waiting. They're watching us, studying us, as if deciding something." The words were barely spoken when the station's proximity alarms blared. From the larger ships, smaller craft began to detach, still massive by consortium standards, but moving with the precision of surgical tools. Their hulls glistened with the same liquid shimmer, forming smooth curves one moment, sharp angles the next, as though metal obeyed their thoughts. "They're approaching the station," Luxandra said. "Docking trajectory." Vex-High's voice tightened. "They're not requesting permission. This could be an incursion." Kethlar's processors ran through 1,000 possible responses. Every instinct said the same thing. Do not fire. The first human craft reached one of the docking bays and slowed to a graceful halt. The bay doors opened automatically, systems responding without being told to. Kethlar could feel the hum of the station's AI strain as if a vast hand had brushed against its mind. Through the atmospheric shield stepped figures in suits of flowing metal, the same adaptive material as their ships. They moved with calm assurance, their helmets transparent enough to reveal human faces, faces eerily close to the archival images in the extinction files, yet subtly changed. The eyes seemed sharper, movements more precise, as if every muscle was under conscious control. The lead figure reached up, touched her helmet, and it dissolved seamlessly into the rest of her suit. Her hair was dark, her gaze steady, her voice carrying across the bay in perfect translation. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor of the Human Confederation," she said. "We have traveled far and long, and we return in peace. We have gifts to share. But first we must ask, are you in need of help?" Luxandra floated forward. "Help? Against what?" The human's expression shifted, a shadow passing through her eyes. "The same enemy that has hunted us for generations. The ones you call the Devourers." At the mention of that name, the bay seemed to grow colder. The Devourers were a nightmare the consortium could barely speak of aloud. Entities that erased worlds from reality, leaving nothing behind but emptiness in the fabric of space. They had claimed 17 star systems in the past 50 years, and no weapon the consortium possessed could stop them. "How do you know about the Devourers?" Luxandra asked. Sarah's voice was steady, but beneath it was steel. "Because they followed us across the galaxy, and if they have found you, they will not stop until there is nothing left." Kethlar felt something strange then, not fear, but a pull, as though 1,000 questions she had carried for centuries had just been given their first real answers. If these were truly humans, they had not only survived their supposed extinction, they had been fighting a war in the shadows no one else could win. The realization struck her with the weight of history. The precursors were not gods, they were not myths. They were survivors. Refugees who had turned survival into a kind of power the galaxy had never seen. And now they had come back. The docking bay's air was heavy with expectation. The assembled consortium delegates stood in a loose semicircle, each species flanked by guards or drones, each one unsure whether they were meeting saviors or a threat beyond imagining. Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor stepped forward, her adaptive armor reshaping subtly with each movement, flowing like quicksilver over her frame. The helmet was gone, revealing a face that seemed to carry centuries in its eyes. Her expression was calm, but there was a quiet gravity to her presence that made even the most experienced alien commanders stand a little straighter. "I thank you for granting me audience," Sarah began. The translators rippled her voice into a dozen tongues simultaneously, but the cadence, the weight, was unmistakable in any language. "We are the children of Earth. We left our home when its sun began to die. We thought we were alone in the dark. We were wrong." A murmur passed through the gathered aliens. Kethlar, her crystalline form catching the docking bay's lights, tilted her head. "You call yourselves children of Earth, yet Earth has been gone for millennia. How can you claim a world that no longer exists?" Sarah's gaze found her and held it. "Because a world is not just soil and stone. It is the memory of who we were and the promise of who we can become. We carried Earth with us in every generation that survived. We carry it still." Behind her, 2 other humans moved forward, their suits morphing to reveal their features. One was bronze-skinned with faint metallic sheen, Prometheus-born, adapted to volcanic heat. The other was pale, her pupils wide, her movements graceful and deliberate. Niflheim, tunnel-born. Together, they embodied the changes time and hardship had carved into humanity's form. Luxandra, the ethereal commander, floated slightly closer, her luminous energy flickering in curiosity. "You say you bring gifts. What could your altered people offer that the consortium does not already have? Sarah gestured toward the human ship beyond the bay doors. Panels along its hull shifted and opened like blooming flowers, revealing strange, pulsing constructs that seemed to warp the space around them. We bring weapons and tools that can fight the Devourers, not deflect them, not slow them, destroy them. The statement hung in the air like a spark before a lightning strike. You claim the impossible, Vexai said, his many voices layered in skepticism. Our fleets have thrown everything at these entities. Energy weapons, singularity generators, matter disruptors, nothing leaves a mark. They consume all. Sarah's expression didn't change. We know. We've been fighting them far longer than you have. They followed us from the old galaxy, across gulfs of time you cannot imagine. We learned their nature, their weaknesses. But we paid for that knowledge with worlds of our own. Kethlar stepped forward now. Then why come here? Why reveal yourselves now after hiding for so long? Sarah's gaze swept the bay, taking in every alien face. Because we can't fight them alone anymore. The swarm coming for you is unlike any we have seen. 1,000 entities moving in coordinated strike formations. If they consume your core worlds, the shockwave will tear this region of space into nothing. Your civilizations will be erased not over decades, but in days. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint, unsettling hum of the human ship's systems resonating through the bay. Then Sarah's voice softened. We stayed hidden to protect ourselves. But along the way, we found ourselves protecting you too, destroying swarms before they reached your worlds, leaving no sign we were there. You never knew how close you came to vanishing. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. We are here now, because that distance is gone. The enemy is already at your gates. It was Luxandra who finally spoke, her tone stripped of ceremony. If what you say is true, then the war we thought unwinnable may yet be fought. And if you lie, if we lied, Sarah said without hesitation, you would already be dead. Silence. Kethlar felt the shift in the air, the way tension coiled into a single shared realization. This was not a parley with strangers. This was the meeting of two forces the galaxy had never thought to unite. And for the first time in centuries, there was a flicker of something she had not dared to feel in the face of the Devourers. Hope. The first time Kethlar saw a Devourer up close, it wasn't through a sensor feed or a distant archive recording. It was through the forward viewport of a consortium command ship, as a living wound in reality drifted into the light of a dying star. It did not have shape in the way normal things did. The mind rebelled against looking at it, as if the creature was an idea that space itself couldn't quite hold. Blacker than the void, but rippling with currents of sickly light beneath its surface, it seemed to bend the fabric of existence wherever it passed. Planets, moons, even the star's light itself seemed to vanish into its form without trace. Around her, veteran commanders stood frozen. No weapon they had, no defense they had built, had ever done more than slow a Devourer's advance for a few minutes. Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor did not flinch. She stood at the central holotable, her armor shimmering faintly as her eyes locked on the entity. This one's small, she said quietly. If you can still see the light around its edges, it hasn't fed in weeks. But don't take that as comfort. A hungry Devourer is faster, more aggressive, and harder to predict. Kethlar forced herself to turn away from the viewport. How many of these things are coming? Sarah didn't look at her. 1,000, at least. This is just a scout, probably sent to test your defenses. It will not return with the report it wants. The holotable shifted to a projection of human weaponry. structures of shifting geometry that looked like they were grown rather than built. "This," Sarah continued, pointing to a structure suspended between two human capital ships, "is a reality anchor. You'll see it in action in a moment. It forces a bubble of space-time to remain stable, immune to the Devourers' consumption effect. Within that bubble, our weapons can hit them. Outside it, nothing matters." "And your weapons?" Luxandra asked, her energy form dimmer than usual. "Quantum disruptors," Sarah said. "They scramble the lattice of exotic matter the Devourer is built from. You can think of them as unraveling the creature's existence, thread by thread." The first shot fired a moment later. The reality anchor flared, an invisible wall becoming visible as distorted starlight rippled across its curve. The Devourer struck it like a storm wave hitting stone. Instead of slipping through reality as it always had before, it stopped. It stopped. For the first time in recorded consortium history, one of the monsters was held in place. The human ships moved with a precision that made Kethlar's processors hum in awe. Smaller vessels darted in tight arcs around the anchored target, their hulls shifting in real time to adapt to unseen currents in the Devourer's defensive field. Then the disruptors fired, beams of strange, lattice-breaking energy that made the creature's surface ripple violently. The thing screamed. It was not a sound in air, but a pulse in the bones, a vibration in the mind. Several consortium officers clutched their heads. The humans ignored it, increasing the disruptor fire until the Devourer's form began to tear apart in slow, horrifying strips. And then, in a blink, it was gone. Not fled, not retreated. Gone. Erased from existence in the same way it had erased so many worlds. No one on the consortium bridge spoke for a full minute. The void where the Devourer had been was filled only with the steady heartbeat of the reality anchor before it shut down. Sarah broke the silence. "That was one. You'll have hundreds arriving at once. And the swarm's central consciousness learns with every defeat. We may never get this lucky again." Kethlar's crystalline structure thrummed with an emotion she rarely admitted to, fear tempered by something else. Not hope exactly, not yet, but the beginning of it. Sarah turned to the assembled commanders. "Now you understand why we came. We've been fighting them alone for far too long. If the children of Earth and the consortium don't stand together, this galaxy will be nothing but a memory in the dark." The meeting after the demonstration lasted deep into the station's artificial night. Plans were drawn, fleets reassigned, weapons tech uploaded into secure consortium archives. But for Kethlar, the image of that anchored Devourer burned in her mind. For the first time in centuries, the predators of the void had bled, and that meant they could die. The War Council convened in the Grand Strategium of the Consortium Core, a chamber so vast its ceiling vanished into shadow, lit only by the shifting glow of an immense three-dimensional star map. Every inhabited world in consortium space was represented there as a point of light, and now hundreds of them blinked red, marking systems already under threat from the Devourer advance. Kethlar stood among the delegates, her crystalline frame reflecting the light of dying stars. Across from her, Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor's figure loomed tall and steady, her adaptive armor absorbing and muting the glow as if it refused to be anything but neutral gray. To the rest of the room, Sarah was an unknown, an emissary of a lost species whose power was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. To Kethlar, she was now the knife's edge between survival and extinction. "We will begin," announced High Strategos Elvin of the Velari, his voice a low growl. "The swarm is less than 90 standard hours from the consortium's inner ring. We have seen their scouts. We have seen what they do. The time for diplomacy is gone. We must strike." Sarah's voice cut through the low rumble of agreement. "Strike with what? Your weapons cannot harm them. Your fleets will die in place, and your worlds will vanish as though they never existed. If you attack with what you have, you will be fighting shadows with bare hands. The star map shifted, replacing the red threat icons with a pattern of flowing symbols. Human battle plans, projected movements, formation shifts so intricate the consortium's most advanced tactical AIs stuttered trying to parse them. "This is what you propose?" Elvin demanded. "Scatter our fleets into hundreds of independent strike groups? That is chaos." "It is adaptation," Sarah replied. "The Devourers operate as a distributed consciousness. If you present a rigid defense, they will dismantle it. If you move like water, strike from angles they cannot predict, they will be forced to split their awareness, and that is when they are vulnerable." Kethlar stepped forward, crystalline facets brightening. "I have studied their simulations. The human strategy requires specialized abilities not found in any consortium fleet doctrine." Sarah inclined her head. "Which is why we will fight as one. Each human colony has evolved for its own hostile environment. Their adaptations are weapons as much as our technology. You saw 2 of them with me in the docking bay. You will see more now." She gestured toward the entry doors. 6 more humans entered, each distinct. A towering man from Prometheus with metallic skin that shimmered like armor and eyes that could stare into a star's corona without flinching. 2 Niflheim tunnel-born with eyes wide and black as void, moving as if the floor was optional, bodies shifting effortlessly in 3 dimensions. A woman from Threshold whose very presence caused faint fluctuations in the star map's magnetic projectors. Small arcs of light danced across her fingertips. "These are not anomalies," Sarah said. "These are the products of 3,000 years of forced evolution. In battle, the Prometheans can endure heat and radiation where no ship could survive long enough to fire. The Tunnelborn can navigate debris fields and Devourer distortions instinctively, guiding fleets where no AI can predict safe passage. The Threshold Adepts can manipulate electromagnetic and exotic particle flows, disrupting Devourer sensory fields at critical moments." The alien commanders shifted uneasily. A dozen unspoken questions hung in the air. How many of them are there? How powerful are they? Could they turn against us? Kethlar found herself asking none of those questions. She was thinking instead of the countless precursor sites she had studied, abandoned structures on inhospitable worlds. She understood now. Those had been the proving grounds. Elvin crossed his arms. "And what do you require from us, Admiral?" Sarah looked him straight in the eye. "Logistics, intelligence, access to your slipstream network. You know your space. We know the enemy. If we are to stand together, you must give us the routes to strike before the swarm reaches your worlds. And you must be ready to put your ships where we say, when we say, without hesitation." "That would make us subordinate to human command," Elvin said slowly. "No," Sarah said. "It would make you alive." The silence that followed was thick, broken only when Luxandra floated forward, her luminous form flickering. "I have reviewed the data. Her plan has a probability of success our own strategies never approached. I will commit the ethereal fleets." One by one, the other commanders followed, reluctantly, cautiously, but with the weight of inevitability. The swarm was coming. Pride was useless to the dead. When the meeting adjourned, Sarah approached Kethlar. "You've seen their doubt," Sarah said softly. "When the first battle begins, if we falter even once, they'll turn on us. We can't just win. We have to show them that with us, the impossible is possible." Kethlar met her gaze. "Then you had better be everything your legends promise, child of Earth." Sarah's smile was thin, but there was fire in it. "I intend to be more." The void between stars was never truly silent. Not in the hours before a battle like this. The comm channels were alive with clipped orders, navigational updates, and the low hum of engines cycling to full output. Thousands of ships, human and alien, drifted in the shadow of a red giant, its fading light turning every hull into a silhouette against the dark. Out there, past the reach of the star's glow, the Devourer swarm was coming. From the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor watched the tactical display bloom with movement. At first, it was just a ripple of distortion at the map's edge. Then, like ink bleeding through paper, a mass of black shapes began to spill into the system. The first wave. They didn't move like fleets. They moved like a living storm. Thousands of entities shifting in impossible patterns, breaking apart and reforming in a way that no mind could predict. And yet, Sarah knew they were thinking. The swarm's consciousness was vast and cold, a predator's mind stretched across 1,000 bodies. Reality anchors to positions Alpha, Bravo, and Kappa, Sarah ordered. Promethean strike groups advance behind thermal shields. Niflheim wings cut through the distortion corridors and feed real-time paths to consortium fleets. Across the battle space, the hybrid human consortium armada came alive. The first clash was brutal. A dozen Devourers swept toward Anchor Alpha, their void black forms swallowing the starlight around them. When they hit the Anchor's field, the space around them flared, physics locking into place, denying them the ability to erase matter. The Promethean ships surged forward, their crews enduring temperatures that would have gutted normal vessels, hammering the trapped entities with disruptor fire. One Devourer screamed, a soundless vibration that hit the nervous system like a hammer. A Zephyrian crystal ship in the formation shattered under the psychic assault, its fragments spinning away into the void. A second was torn apart when a Devourer lunged against the anchor's edge, fracturing it. The reality bubble flickered, and for a heartbeat, Sarah thought they'd lose the position. Then Niflheim tunnel-borne fighters swarmed in, weaving through the broken space like they'd flown it their whole lives. Guided by instinct, they reinforced the anchor with auxiliary projectors, stabilizing it long enough for the disruptors to finish their work. 3 Devourers dissolved into ribbons of nothingness. But there were more. Always more. On the Eternal Dawn's flank, a cluster of smaller Devourers broke through, darting toward the unprotected side of a consortium battleship. A threshold. Adept named Anya Sol raised her hands, and arcs of light burst from her fingertips into the ship's systems. The battleship's magnetic shields flared in strange, layered frequencies, an improvised field that confused the creature's senses just long enough for allied fire to cut them down. Still, for every victory, there was a cost. A Promethean cruiser took a direct hit from a concentrated consumption wave, half of it simply erased, the rest tumbling into the void. The crew had seconds to transmit their final data burst before the ship vanished entirely. Sarah's comms officer's voice broke through the chaos. "Admiral, enemy mass signatures increasing. The main body of the swarm is entering the system, over 800 entities, converging from 3 vectors." This was the moment the simulations had warned about. If the 3 arms of the swarm united before being thinned, the anchors would collapse under the strain. "Split the line," Sarah said. "Human wings Beta and Gamma, push into their lead elements. Draw them off, even if it costs you. Consortium command ships, pivot toward Vector 3 and reinforce Delta formation. We can't let them merge." The orders went out, and the battle fragmented into dozens of savage little wars. Human ships danced between alien vessels, adapting in real time, hulls reshaping to take advantage of gaps in the enemy's formation. Consortium fleets provided massed firepower, guided by human targeting algorithms that could anticipate a Devourer's evasions seconds before they happened. In the chaos, one signal cut through, a steady, calm voice on a direct channel to the Eternal Dawn. "Admiral, this is Captain Rana Chan, Prometheus's Wrath. We're pinned. If they breach this anchor, the entire flank will fold." Sarah checked the feed. The Wrath's position was untenable, 6 Devourers pressing the anchor from all sides. Reinforcements couldn't arrive in time. Rana knew it too. "We'll hold as long as we can. Tell my people. Tell them the fire still burns." The channel cut out before Sarah could answer. On the display, the Wrath's reactor flared like a newborn star, a final act of defiance. The blast collapsed the local space, taking the anchor and every devourer in range with it. The bridge was silent for 2 long breaths. Then Sarah said, "All units push forward. Don't let their sacrifice be for nothing." The battle raged on, but in that moment, the Armada moved with one mind. Not human, not alien. Something greater, born of desperation and shared resolve. And as the Devourer numbers began, finally, to fall, Sarah knew they had a chance. A costly one, but a chance. The system's light was strange now, thin, fractured, warped by the gravitational and energy distortions left in the wake of the battle. Wreckage drifted in long, silent arcs, the twisted spines of ships that had been whole only hours ago, the frozen silhouettes of crew who had been pulled into the void before their suits could seal. From the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor stood at the viewport, the flicker of reality anchors still burning in her peripheral vision. The tactical map showed what her eyes could not. The Devourer swarm, once a relentless wall of black, had thinned to scattered clusters retreating toward the system's edge. "Status," she said quietly. Commander David Kim, pale from exhaustion but steady in his tone, answered. 72% of our fleet still operational. Consortium losses higher. Nearly half their heavy cruisers gone. Anchor fields Alpha and Gamma are holding. Kappa collapsed 30 minutes ago, but the Devourers there were destroyed. And the swarm's core? Breaking apart. We're reading over 200 entities in full retreat. It was the first time in consortium history the words Devourer and retreat had ever been spoken in the same sentence. Yet Sarah felt no triumph. She remembered every signal lost, every ship she'd seen vanish into nothingness. She remembered Captain Ranachan's voice before the Prometheus's wrath lit the void with its final act. On the far side of the bridge, Kethlar stood before the star map, her crystalline facets refracting pale light across the floor. "They'll regroup," she said, almost to herself. "They'll adapt, just as you have." Sarah joined her, eyes fixed on the map. "I know. That's why we finish this while we can." Kethlar's gaze flickered toward her. "You mean to hunt them?" "I mean to wipe them out before they learn how to stop us." She turned to the comms officer. "Signal the coalition. Begin Phase 2. We strike their forward hives before they can reform a unified consciousness." Luxandra's voice came over the shared channel, her luminous form flickering into view on the holoprojector. "Your fleets are bloodied, Admiral. Some worlds are vulnerable without their defenders. And you want to chase the enemy into deep space?" Sarah didn't flinch. "Every battle we fight on our terms buys us centuries. Every battle we fight on theirs costs us everything." The Council of Commanders debated, but the images from the battle, anchors holding against the impossible, disruptors tearing void beasts apart, had shifted something fundamental in their thinking. Slowly, reluctantly, they agreed. The coalition's fleets began to reform into new strike groups. This time, the formations weren't alien or human. They were both, woven together like strands of a single thread. Promethean war cruisers flanked Zephyrian crystal ships. Niflheim tunnel-borne corvettes flew in seamless formation with Kalari sensor craft. Threshold adepts were stationed aboard ethereal command vessels, their strange powers now considered an asset rather than a curiosity. Sarah walked the length of the Eternal Dawn's bridge, watching the crew's work. The mixed human-alien voices over comms were no longer guarded or suspicious. Orders flowed easily, laughter even flickered in the background, grim but real. When the coalition was ready, Sarah gave the order. "All units, engage Slipstream. We take the fight to them." The transition was violent. The Eternal Dawn and hundreds of other ships tore through space into the borderless void between stars, chasing the retreating fragments of the swarm. Here, without the anchor of a system's gravity well, the Devourers moved differently, faster, more fluid, their forms stretching and fracturing like smoke in a wind. The coalition adapted in real time. Anchors were deployed from mobile carriers, locking pockets of space for disruptor fire. Tunnel-borne navigators found gravitational eddies invisible to instruments, guiding strike groups into firing positions the Devourers couldn't anticipate. Threshold adepts rippled electromagnetic storms through the void, scrambling the swarm's ability to coordinate. One by one, forward hives fell, pockets of reality where the Devourers nested, anchoring their presence before expanding into inhabited space. In each one, Sarah saw the same signs: consumed worlds, erased moons, entire regions where starlight itself seemed thinner. It took 36 continuous hours of combat to finish the work, when the last hive collapsed into nothingness. The void was still for the first time in living memory. On the bridge, exhausted crews let out quiet cheers. Some wept. Others simply sat, staring at the stars, too tired to process what they'd just survived. Sarah looked to Kethlar, who was watching her with something between admiration and wariness. "You've done what no one thought possible," the Zephyrian said. Sarah shook her head. "We've done what was necessary. Now comes the hard part, making sure it stays done." Because she knew, in the cold clarity of a soldier who had lived too long, that the Devourers would not be gone forever. Something like them never truly was. But for now, in this quiet moment, the galaxy had space to breathe, and that was worth every sacrifice. The capital world of the Galactic Consortium was unlike anything Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor had seen in 3,000 years of human wandering. It was a world built on harmony between 100 species, cities of living crystal that sang with the wind, floating towers tethered to the clouds by shimmering light beams, rivers that curved through sprawling gardens grown from alien soil. The air was thick with the scent of flowering vines that glowed faintly in the twilight. But now, for the first time in its history, the capital was filled with something else: the fleets of the children of Earth. Their living metal hulls gleamed in the alien sun, docked alongside consortium warships in patterns that had never been attempted before. No longer separate, no longer strangers. The war was over, at least for now. The Devourer swarm that had haunted consortium space was broken, its forward hives destroyed, its collective consciousness shattered. But the victory had not come without cost. Wreckage still drifted in half a dozen systems. Entire crews had been lost. And for every cheer that rang through the capital's streets, there was an empty seat somewhere in the galaxy that would never be filled again. Sarah walked the grand causeway leading to the council hall, flanked by 2 Promethean heavy armor guards and a single Niflheim tunnel-borne scout. Around them, representatives of every species watched in silence as she passed. It wasn't fear anymore, not entirely. It was recognition. Inside, the council chamber was a great circular space beneath a vast, domed skylight. In its center, a hollow map of the galaxy rotated slowly, showing worlds safe and reclaimed. Fleet Commander Kethlar was waiting, her crystalline facets polished to a mirror-bright gleam. "The council is ready for you," she said. There was no ceremony, no formal greeting, just the tone of someone speaking to an equal. The meeting began with the recounting of what had been won and lost, the full scope of the battle laid bare. But everyone in that chamber knew this was more than a war report. This was history pivoting. Luxandra, the ethereal commander, floated forward. "Admiral Chen Okafor, the galaxy owes your people a debt beyond measure. You ask for membership in the consortium, and the council has deliberated." Sarah met her gaze without blinking. "We do not come to rule you. We do not come to place ourselves above you. We come to stand beside you. Equal partners in a galaxy that has learned the cost of division." Elvin of the Velari rose from his seat, his voice gravel-deep. We feared you when you arrived. We feared the power you carried. Now, I see that you carry it, so you may bear burdens none of us could alone. Kethlar's voice was clear and ringing in the chamber. I propose the immediate induction of the Human Confederation into the Galactic Consortium with full rights and responsibilities. All in favor? One by one, the lights of the Council's voting spheres ignited. Blue for yes. The chamber filled with a steady glow, and for the first time in the Consortium's long history, a new star was added to the great mosaic above the Council dais. A human star. The ceremony that followed spilled out into the capital's streets. Human children, some Promethean with faint metallic skin, some threshold-born with eyes that caught the light like mirrors, ran alongside Zapirian crystal children, Kalari collectives in their small, quick bodies, and shimmering ethereal younglings who flickered in and out of solid form as they laughed. No barriers, no boundaries. Sarah stood on a balcony overlooking it all, the alien wind carrying the sound of celebration to her ears. Kethlar joined her, the light glinting off her many facets. You've changed us, Kethlar said. You've changed everything. Sarah smiled faintly. So have you. This was never about returning to claim something. It was about finding a home big enough for all of us. Kethlar tilted her head, studying her. And yet, I sense you are still searching. Sarah's gaze drifted upward, past the skyline, toward the stars. We found each other here, but not all of us. There are human colonies scattered beyond even the Consortium's maps, some flung so far in time and space they may not recognize us anymore. Some may have become more than human. And if you find them, we'll offer them what we found here, a place where they won't have to fight alone. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the mingled crowds below. In the plaza, a child, half human, half alien, was teaching others a game that involved chasing beams of colored light across the ground. The laughter that followed rang out across the square, cutting through centuries of mistrust and fear. Sarah breathed it in like fresh air. That's why we returned. Not to reclaim the galaxy, but to make sure it's still here for them. Above them, the galaxy spun on in the endless dark. And somewhere, far beyond Consortium space, there were still seeds of Earth scattered to the cosmic wind waiting to be found. The children of Earth had come home, and their journey was far from over.